Hello, welcome to the Jim Kleiber Show. Today is Friday, December 18th, 2020. That means there are only like 2 weeks. Is it just 2 weeks left in 2020? Oh, oh, we are almost there, as if 2021 is just going to be this miracle that changes everything. That is, if somehow when the world, spins around the sun, that somehow when we make that point, then life is different. But perhaps it will be because we believe it will be. I was talking with a friend about this book. I think it's a movie called The Secret, but really just talking about this concept of self-fulfilling prophecy. I would say, if you believe it, it can possibly happen, and our actions follow a lot from our beliefs, and others people's actions follow a lot from those beliefs. Yeah, so maybe 2021 will actually be tangibly different in our minds because we believe it's different and therefore we'll act differently. Who knows? But it's almost here, which means Christmas is almost here in the United States, which is a week away, which means I can't do my traditional Christmas Eve shopping at the stores. Maybe I can buy some stuff online, but I should probably do that sooner rather than later. This year is just, it's throwing off every schedule, isn't it? I wanted to talk today about old friends, people that we've known throughout most of our lives. Yes, we have our family that we've known forever. Pretty much we've known our parents since we've been born, for many of us. If not our parents, then our caretakers. And some of us have friends that we've known since we were little. Like, I have friends I've known since I was 5. Like, one that I stay in pretty consistent contact with since I was like 5 or 6. Another one that, I've seen since I was like 5. Others since like 8, 9, 10. Some people I went to elementary school with, preschool with. There's one I went to preschool with. Haven't talked to in a while, but we catch up occasionally now and then. Just this idea of knowing people since we were little kids. I think as we grow up, we often go in different directions, especially nowadays in more modern lifestyle. We go off to college, we go off to work, we get our own families, and we get married, we have kids, and we just don't see anyone that much on a daily basis unless it's our family. Whereas when we were young and we were going to school, we would see these people every day. A long time. Now, okay, maybe you can argue at a work standpoint, you see people day in, day out so much. But there seems to be something really different about work. There's not a lot of recess at work. You may not eat lunch together at work. You may not have that same bonding experience just from the amount of time spent together. I think for many of us, this pandemic has given us a lot of time to spend with a certain group of people. But maybe still it doesn't have the same effect as it did when we were kids. Because nowadays, even though we can spend time with each other, but then we can sneak off to our phones or to our computers and drift away intellectually. But at least when I was growing up, the internet was just in its like baby form. There was no cable internet. There was no 3G. There was no 2G. Just dial-up internet. And I think it's easy for me to forget, and maybe for you as well, how much time I actually spent with some of these people. I would see some people at school. And then, in high school, for example, I'd see some people and maybe we were all in the same classes, right? So there were only so many. I was in a lot of the like AP classes or the advanced classes. And so maybe there are only so many advanced math classes or advanced English classes. And so I was in the same classes with the same people. And then if they played sports as well, then a lot of times I'd be on the same sports team as them. So I'd spend most of my day with them. And then I'd spend the afternoon with them. And then if they were my friends, I'd see them on the weekends. you know? Um, and I think about going back even younger, in middle school and especially elementary school. Man, we'd spend all day together. We'd have class. We'd be in the same class. In elementary school, we had one teacher. So we would see that person, the same people all day. And then we'd go to recess and we'd see them at recess. And then again, a lot of times we'd live so close to each other in the neighborhood that we'd hang out after school. And they'd be our friends. We'd play street hockey, or we'd play basketball, or we'd climb trees, or we'd play tag, or we'd do all these different sorts of games. And I think we often don't have that opportunity as we get older in many ways. Maybe it's because I've been single so much and because I've traveled and moved so many places. Maybe you're out there saying, no way, what are you talking about? Like my partner, my spouse and I, we've been so close. We actually know each other super well. And maybe that's the case. Even though I'd say in that case, it's often with a spouse or with kids, not with friends anymore. If friends are considered, like outside, not with a group of people, more with just kind of an individual, or kind of the kids kind of, they're not, a group of individuals, but like the family unit. How many of us don't talk with friends that we had growing up, that we feel somewhat distant from them? We went in different directions, and for some reason, we don't talk to them. We don't like them. Maybe we got into a fight. Maybe someone stole the girl we were in love with, and so we don't talk to them anymore. Maybe we just moved on to different things, and maybe we feel embarrassed to have the conversation. We don't know if they want to talk to us anymore. Maybe we don't feel as proud, of what we've done so far. So maybe they had really high expectations for us. I think that's part of my reason sometimes when I don't talk with people that I grew up with. I remember coming back to, I came back to Michigan at one point. I went to the library and I saw a friend's mom there, and she was working there. I was like, wow, hey, good to see you, this and that. And she goes, hey, what are you up to? I said, oh, this, and I just started this company or working on emotional self-defense, or so I came back. She said, I thought you would be a millionaire by now. Oh. I think so many people had very high expectations of me from my, who knew me in my childhood. I was the kid who did really well in school, and I did pretty well in sports, and I seemed to get along with a lot of people. So they thought, oh, this kid's going places. And while I think I have gone places, I think they expected me to go different places. I've gone to many physical places. I think a lot of them expected me to more quickly go to different financial places or positional places in companies. Different paths, put it that way. And I wonder how that holds back some of you from having connections with friends that knew you when you were a kid. Maybe they have different expectations. Maybe they expected you to not do so well. Or maybe they expected you to go left and you went right. Maybe they expected, we always have expectations of people, and it can be really shocking sometimes. I played football with one guy, and I saw him at the 10-year reunion, I think. And he was kind of the kid that goofed off a little bit and get in trouble a lot, and wouldn't listen to the authority and this and that so much. Get into fights with the coach, and saw him at the 10-year reunion. He's like, oh yeah, I'm a civil engineer now. I'm like, you're a civil engineer? Fantastic. I totally did not expect that. Not in a mean way. I just didn't, engineering can take a lot of discipline at times. And he didn't seem like he had that discipline. But you know what? We all go through different things, and we never know why other people are behaving the way they're behaving. Heck, more often than not, we don't even know why we're behaving the way that we're behaving. And so, yeah, I think it's an opportunity to see what people thought of you, almost to try to see if people predicted where you would be. And if not, why not, But I find there's also this certain I don't know, I feel a certain level of relaxation interacting with people that I've known from my childhood. Yeah, maybe there's that uh, initial confusion of, oh, like you didn't meet the expectations, or you went in a different direction. But I think past that, just trying to reflect, I think one thing that really comforts me is the knowledge that I can talk to someone and they know a lot of the same people. That is this tight knit group. I can talk to a friend from high school and I can refer to maybe 100 or 200 other people, and they all know them by name, at least, if not quite well. If I go back to even younger, some of these references are even stronger. Whereas I think as an adult, and again, maybe it's because I've traveled and moved so much, I think about my community or my network, and it seems to be very almost like a hub and spoke model. It'd almost be like I'm the hub and all these spokes go out to the side, and I'm connected to those people, but they're not connected to each other. And sometimes I think I could feel a lot of pressure, because that means they're all, if they want to talk to each other, they all come through me. Now, it can also make me feel important and needed, and perhaps that's one of the reasons. And can also feel more safe for me, because then they're not talking to each other or conspiring against me. Fascinating. I wonder if that's a reason. I'm curious why I haven't connected a lot of this. So if you think of a hub and spoke model, typically a hub and spoke model is on a car. So on a wheel, rather. And so you have the hub and then you have the spokes going out, but then you have the wheel around the outside that connects. You have the rim that connects all of the spokes. And I think, at least for me, and maybe it's different for everyone, right? So maybe people went to different schools growing up. They moved a lot. And so a lot of their childhood friends don't know each other. For me, I grew up in the same house from 0 to 18. So I went to the same schools, and most of my friends kind of grew up in the same houses as well. It was a quite stable community in many ways. And so a lot of the people that I knew stayed for quite a long time. And so I think there were a lot of interconnections. It felt like a more connected community, where I think a lot of times as an adult, it has been more of individual relationships and not such a tight-knit community, if that makes sense. I was on a call yesterday about coming home from war and trying to talk about the generativity, like the generative process of coming home. So how do people who are coming home from war take their experiences and generate art or generate tools, or somehow take that experience and turn it into something for themselves and for other people. And what struck me is just how, again, in the military setting, especially while you're deployed, but also basic training, and maybe if you went to a military school, the guy who hosted it went to I think the Naval Academy in Annapolis, if I'm getting my details correct, and just the community bonding that happens in that environment, which can be very similar to playing sports growing up, which can be very similar to just going to elementary school in some ways, in the level of community bonding with many people, like one person bonding with many people and many people bonding with many people. So having this really like intricately woven community, and how comforting that can feel at times. I'm sure there are things that can really scare one about that, right? There's not a lot of privacy. It can be very frustrating that everybody knows your business. It can be very frustrating that everyone has certain expectations of you. At the same time, it could feel relaxing knowing that there are other people who can help, and everyone kind of can help each other, so that if one person is hurt or needs to take time out, that it'll still work. I think about this in the context of running a business, or even having a family and raising kids. And I think so often we're becoming more and more trying to be maybe more and more independent, or more and more like reduce the number of people involved in something. And I think, like, from raising a family, I think a lot of times we have less and less community involvement. When I was growing up, a lot of the neighbors would chip in. Maybe the neighbors would watch the kids, or we would all go outside and play, and then one of the neighbors would watch us, or we'd go to the neighbor's house. And so then my parents could have like a little time to relax. Or maybe, we would go to, we'd all the kids and all the parents would go to the one house, and then, the kids can kind of watch each other in some ways. And so it was a lot of pressure could be taken off the individual parents. And you could also say that, yeah, a lot of the grandparents or stuff were around, so it was easier on that. But nowadays, like, a lot of people, when they're raising kids, seem to be far away from the grandparents, if the grandparents are still alive, seem to be far away from the aunts and the uncles, if they're still alive, and don't have a lot of that familial, like the close family support, physically close especially, and may not have that support from the neighbors either, and may not have that support from the friends of the parents either. And so it can almost become, it can make the parents more important, feel more important, because they are more vital, they are more essential, and can put a lot of stress on them, I can imagine. Like, and I think a lot of parents are feeling this during the pandemic, where basically medically people are saying, don't get support from other people because you don't know where they've been. And you don't know if they have the virus. And one of the highest rates of transmission is within the house, because basically it's enclosed space with people breathing and talking a lot. And so the virus gets into the air, and there's not a lot of good air circulation. Indoor air quality is quite poor in, I would say, most parts of the United States, but especially in some parts. And so there's been even more pressure now to just stay with a very small cohort of people. And the problem is, the smaller it gets, the more that each person becomes essential. And when something happens to one of those people, even if something doesn't happen, it could still overwhelm them. I've thought about this in the context of running workshops. So I've started running emotional self-defense workshops online, and I realized, okay, if I'm running the workshop, I'm there. But if I'm sick, I can't be there and the class doesn't go on. Also, when I'm running the workshop, I can't be promoting the workshop at the same time to other people. And so there's only so much that I can do. And I try to imagine what that might be like as a parent, not having that very tight-knit community around them to pick up the slack, to do the things that they can't do. Right? Maybe there are some things as a parent that you're not really good at, but we almost put, at least sometimes here in the US, we can put such a strong cultural expectation on who should parent the kid, and how the kid should only be parented by the quote unquote parents or the guardians, in that there shouldn't be a lot of outside influence, at least compared to in the past. In the past, I think they're, what do they say? Something like it. Oh man, I totally botch a lot of these idioms and cliches and stuff. But something like, it takes a village to raise a child. It used to take a village, and I think it still does take a village, but we've put all the pressure on two parents, or one parent, or one grandparent, or one aunt, or one person or two people to raise a child, or many children. And we don't necessarily recognize the downsides of that. Maybe the parents do in the moment, but maybe don't know the solution. And so I've kind of deviated from the idea of, having the friendship community growing up. And yet I think, why does it have to stop? I understand there's reasons we're not spending the same amount of time in the same amount of context, going through the same struggles together, so the bonding doesn't happen as strongly. But maybe it could in some ways. Maybe we could expand it and open up a little more and go through more experiences with other people and have those people know the same people. How many people, when they move into a neighborhood, say, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to meet all the neighbors and have the neighbors come together and meet themselves, right? Or how many people in a neighborhood, when somebody new moves in, says, oh, let's throw a block party or let's throw a neighborhood party for this person. So it's an excuse for us to meet this person, help that person meet everyone else, and for us to see other people and reconnect with them, to grow tighter bonds with the community. I'd imagine nowadays, especially in the US, this rarely happens. I know as a kid, I used to go to block parties. They'd shut down the street. It was really fun. Sometimes they'd put out one of those moonwalks or bouncy castles or whatever you call them. I had super fun as a kid. Didn't realize that the parents were drinking, but things you learn over time. But even then, right, throw the kids into a moonwalk or a bouncy castle, and they can bounce around and have fun, and then the parents can go have a cocktail. And still keep an eye on the kids together because they're all in the same spot. And if a kid leaves, then all the other kids can say, hey, this kid disappeared, or the kids can keep an eye on the other kids. It just seems that we're putting a lot of pressure on ourselves to do everything by ourselves. And when I say we, I'm assuming other people as well, but me especially. Gosh, I put so much pressure on myself to get it done by myself, to run this podcast by myself, to run classes by myself, to build an app by myself, to market it by myself, to do the accounting by myself, to do the legal side by myself, to do the taxes by myself, to do the technology by myself, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in one way, I like the amount of control that it gives me. And in another way, I think it can stress me the heck out, right? Just knowing that there's a lot of things that I'm not that good at, and in putting that pressure on myself to always show up when other people can show up. One of the things they say it's best for an organization where a boss is micromanaging is for him to go on, or him or her to go on vacation. If that person goes on vacation, often they'll realize that the company is fine. It can continue without them. But it's hard to go on that vacation, to take a break, to step away, and to trust that everything will be okay. The challenge with doing things by ourselves is that we can't step away. If we step away, there is no one to do it. It's not that we can't, they may do well or they may not do well. They may screw it up or they may succeed. There's no one to even trust to do it because there's nobody there. I think about that as I run this podcast. It's like, if I step away from this even if I just miss it for an hour, or I forgot to upload it, people, hey, where's the podcast? Oh, you didn't do a podcast today? What's going on? Like, oh no. Right? Who's my backup? Who's my backup for uploading it? Who's my backup? Who's the backup? Or who's the teammate? Where are the teammates? So I talk about this for me in the context of running businesses, but I think for others, it's in raising kids. It's even a romantic backup, Maybe this is where I go off a little too far into non-monogamy and scare some people. But this idea of like, we put so much pressure on a romantic partner to be everything for us, to do everything for us. And if they're not up to it, where's the backup? Where's the team? Where's the tag team member? Hey, you can come in. It doesn't always have to be something sexual. It could be something like emotional support. Maybe they had a really, 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 really long day, or they're sick, or they're really hurting. And so it's very hard for them to sit and listen. But if we're only allowed to emotionally open up to them, and we don't have anyone else on our emotional team, then we get stuck. So we either burden them by opening up and talking to them about what's going on with us, or we don't, and we burden ourselves by holding it all in. It seems, I don't know, when I look back on my childhood specifically, it seems like there was a much larger team, a more tightly knit community where more people knew each other, and we were all working together in many ways. And I think as I've grown older, I've gone from playing team sports to individual sports more and more, metaphorically. And I wonder if others have as well. And the impacts of it. Again, it gives us more control. It allows us just to work with ourselves and push ourselves, and gives us more flexibility in many ways. And it can put more pressure on ourselves to be there all the time. It can make us angry at ourselves for not being good at everything. And it can make us less successful and less sturdy, robust, or resilient, because if something wipes us out, then we're shit out of luck, basically. So yeah, this conversation started about talking about old friends and how old friends can really know us well, and how it can feel really comforting to be around people who know us well. Many ways we can relax. In many ways they can pick up the slack and jump in and help us out when we need it. And how, at least for me, I get the impression I haven't formed a lot of those communities where my friends know my other friends, and have such a strong, well-knit team. But maybe you have, maybe you haven't. I don't know. Again, part of this is just me reflecting, throwing it out in the world, not to say what we are all experiencing, but to say what I'm experiencing, or at least I think I'm experiencing, and to hope it resonates with you and helps you reflect on your personal situation. We all have different situations. Maybe yours is even the opposite, or maybe it's the same, or maybe it's slightly similar and slightly different. Who knows? Thank you all for reflecting with me today. Today is Friday, December 18th. Again, we are 2 weeks away from 2021, and we are at the weekend, the last weekend before Christmas. So take care, y'all. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and talk to you on Monday.